If you've seen any of my champion guides, you know I love my tier lists. Today, we're gonna do another, ranking the champions that were released or had a constellation update in 2025. Please note, you won't see any Spirit Blossom champions ranked as I haven't powered them all up, and I want this to be as even a comparison as possible. Alright, let's get on with it. I'll be ranking these champions in order of release. First up is Kayle. She came out way back in January, during the aftermath of the Warwick, Fiddlesticks, and Ambessa situation. These champions were released without voice lines or unique level up animations, causing a frenzy in the community at the time. As a result, Riot needed time to rethink things, and Kayle was the only champion to come out that month. Her biggest issue is that she has no control outside of Star Power 6, so you'll take a lot of damage with her, and that can really add up over the course of an adventure, so I'm going to put her in the C tier. The start of the Titans of Runeterra event in February led to us getting some big boys that month. Nautilus, along with a rework and constellation for Nasus. Naughty is fun to play, but the biggest issue is that deep takes a while to get to. And while you're trying to get deep, the opponent will be kicking your ass. Naughty's signature relic does speed this up, but my rule is if a champion needs a paid relic to be good, they kinda suck. Naughty will join Kayle in the C tier. Nasus' rework made his deck a whole lot better, and helped him focus on slaying as many units as possible. Susan can feel quite powerful into certain adventures, but totally unplayable in others. The issue with the slay mechanic is that it doesn't really work if your opponent's units are bigger than yours, and this will be the case in most nightmares, but if you're not playing a nightmare, you'll dominate. I'm gonna put Nasus as our first champion in the B tier. We got two more Titans in March, Tryndamere and Elder Dragon. If you like playing slot machines, you'll love Tryndamere. Every time you play Call to Arms, you're leaving your turn up to chance. And just like the slots, Call to Arms can either hit or bust. You can adjust the odds by putting as many big, beefy units in your deck as possible, but because so much is up to chance, Tryndamere is very inconsistent. For that reason, he'll join Kayle and Naughty in the C tier. Elder Dragon is incredibly powerful, but can take a while to get going. This snowball effect can be sped up dramatically if you have the Starforged Gauntlets relic, but if not, the wait can feel like an eternity. But because I was fortunate enough to get that relic, I think Eddie is amazing and belongs in the A tier. We got two constellation updates in April, Lux and Leona. Lux is a spellcaster that scales up the damage of her final sparks and provides free rallies for her units. This gives her a unique mix of control and aggression, and makes her better as the game goes on. The only problem is that getting the final sparks can sometimes be inconsistent, and leave her unprepared for big attacks from the enemy. But despite that, she's the best champion we've placed so far, so she'll be joining Eddie in the A tier. Leona is the only champion that revolves around the Daybreak mechanic. The problem is this mechanic absolutely sucks unless you have Ravoon on the board. You're simply stalling until this happens, which may last for a turn or two. In my original Leona guide, I said she's the best 6-star Targon champion, but boy oh boy, that aged like milk, so I'm gonna put her right in the middle of the C tier. The start of the Rogues of Runeterra event in May saw the introduction of Akshan and Jhin receiving a constellation. I severely underrated Akshan when he came out. At the time, I said he was just alright, but now I think he's one of the best new champions to come out this year. The options he gets from both the Warlord's Horde and Palace give him the ability to handle virtually any situation the enemy throws at him. Because of that, Akshan is headed straight to where he belongs, the S tier. Jhin is one of the best control champions the game has ever seen. His ability to deal increased damage to stunned units gives him the ability to deal with big threats much more quickly than other champions. Jhin's only issue is that he's one of the most champ-reliant decks in the game, so good luck winning if you don't draw him. For that reason, I can't put him higher than the A tier, but I'll place him above Lux. In June, we got Twisted Fate and a constellation for Sett. Twisted Fate is an interesting case. I loved him when he came out, but I've soured on him a bit since then. His wildcards are unique and provide him with a lot of flexibility, but it's a gimmick that I've grown tired of, and I find myself rarely using him these days. However, Twisted Fate is not a bad champion at all, so I'll be putting him at the top of the B tier. Sett is pretty similar to Twisted Fate, in that I've soured on him and haven't used him much recently. The biggest problem with Sett is that you want him on the board as soon as possible, but doing so requires 5 coins if you have him at 6 stars, and that's incredibly difficult to get on turn 1. So what winds up happening is that you're totally unprepared for the response on turn 2 and can take a huge attack. Still, Sett can snowball quite effectively in later turns, so for now I'm putting him at the bottom of the B tier. July saw Mel introduced to the game and Thresh receiving a constellation. Mel is the only champion that made their Legends of Runeterra debut in 2025, something I hope we'll see a lot more of in 2026. With her spread damage and increased scaling over time from spells, Mel can feel like a lesser version of Swain. However, we're not comparing her to him, we're comparing her against the other champions of 2025. If that's the case, Mel is near the top, as there's very few things she can't handle. I'm going to put her right behind Jhin in the A tier. Okay, now Thresh, don't waste your resources on Thresh. I've had a few people in my comments try to convince me that he's not garbage, but I honestly think they're living in Fantasyland. Thresh is going straight to the D tier. In fact, let's quickly rename it as the Thresh tier, because he won't have company anytime soon. August and September saw the introduction of the Spirit Blossom region in Path of Champions, but because Riot fumbled the bag so hard when it comes to the region's resources, I enjoy pretending that these champions don't exist, until Riot bothered to make Spirit Blossom chests useful by increasing the drop rates of both Nova and Star Crystals. I will happily ignore Spirit Blossom champions in the future as well. October saw the introduction of Anivia and a constellation for Annie. In the later stages of an encounter, Anivia and her units can scale to obscene levels. The problem is getting to that point. Anivia has amazing potential, but is too reliant on drafting synergistic champions and spells to get there, so I'll be putting her right in the middle of the B tier. It feels like Annie's constellation turned her from a control champion into an aggro champion, but I'm not complaining about that. She would be in the S tier if not for Akshan and some other champions we'll see soon, but Annie fits quite well into the A tier. I think she's a bit better than Lux, but not as good as Mel, so I'll be putting her right between them. In November, Shyvana was released in Path of Champions, and Elise got a constellation. We also saw the beginning of the Teamfight Adventures event, possibly the least impactful event in the history of this game. What did it do? It gave you crappy powers to pick from and one cool boss fight. But it wasn't all bad. Shyvana came out, one of the most fun champion releases of the year. I'll put her near the top of the B tier. And Elise was already pretty good before, but her constellation turned her into possibly the best one-hit KO champion in the game. But because she's a bit more susceptible to control than Akshan, I'll put her just below him. Finally, we've made it to December. This month saw the release of Azir into Path of Champions, and Poro King got his constellation. Azir's ability to share his items with all other champions in the deck makes him one of the craziest champions this game has ever seen. He's joining Akshan and Elise in the S tier. And like Elise, the Poro King is part of the keyword soup archetype, but unlike the Spider Queen, Poro King doesn't threaten a KO on turn 1, leading to big problems for you in the following turns. As I said in my guide, Poro King is a lot of fun, but is too weak to be considered competitive. He's got that in common with a lot of other champions as well, so I'll be putting him right in between Anivia and Nasus in the B tier. Alright, that's the tier list. Be sure to let me know how badly I messed up in those comments, eh? If you'd like to see me discuss some of these champions in more detail, check out this playlist. Or you can help me out by liking the video and subscribing so you can see the next one. Thanks, and have a happy new year. I'll see you guys in 2026.